This is the BlackPrint podcast, where purpose meets power, where culture isn't just celebrated, it's constructed. I'm your host, Dr. VaShawn Smith, educator, leader, dream builder. Every episode, we're unlocking the blueprint to elevate schools, shift systems, and empower leaders who know that change doesn't start at the top, it starts within. So whether you're leading a classroom or a community, tap in, lean in, and let's build the future together. Good morning and welcome to the BlackPrint podcast. I'm your host, Dr. VaShawn Smith. We're excited about today's episode. Man, I'm just so excited to talk to this man. But let me get back to it. Here we go. So each week we follow a blueprint we call mapping here, mindset, approach, people, practices, next steps, and gems, where we highlight excellence in education that's happening around not just Kansas City, but across the entire country. Today's episode, boy, I tell you, is a movement that's reshaping how Kansas City does education and beyond. The title of today's episode is The BlackPrint of Recruiting and Advancing Black Male Educators. My guest today is Mr. Cornell Ellis, the Executive Director of Brothers Liberating Our Community, also known as BLOC KC. Since its founding in 2016, BLOC has been connecting, developing, and engaging Black male educators to create a liberation and equity-centered school. Cornell has been at the forefront of this mission, transitioning from the classroom to leading and growing a movement that extends beyond local boundaries to national and global levels. Today, we're going to talk about representation, retention, and the revolutionary vision that BLOC KC has brought to the educational forefront. So let's jump into it. Cornell, man, I'm honored to have you on the show. But before we dive into our mapping framework, I just want to check in with you personally, man. You've been leading, organizing. Every time I see you out here doing something big in the city to advance Black male education. But outside of what you're doing with BLOC KC and helping Black males across Kansas City Metro, what keeps you grounded as just a Black man? That's what I want to check in with you today with.
Man, that's a great question to start off with. And I thank you for having me here on this platform. It's an incredible opportunity to be able to have a conversation with you, who is a brilliant leader and educator, and on this platform, because I know there's lots of educators out there that are going to be listening to this and folks that are doing life-changing work. So I'm happy to be here, man. And I think, again, that's a great question, because I hope that all of our educators have something in their personal lives or something in their everyday routine that helps ground them or that helps them fill their cups so that they can go to work to be able to pour into other people's cups. Man, I'm a big meditator. I'm a big reader. And so every morning I spend time in my Bible and I spend time with myself and some quiet to be able to ground myself in what my purpose is, and prayer, to be able to really be careful and intentional about my daily steps. I think that the spirituality, behind education, Black spirituality, God spirituality, karma spirituality, however you think about it, is something that's a key component of schools and education being something that's transformative. And so I try to root myself in that every day, at least for 20 or 30 minutes in the morning. And I'm getting pretty good at it now. I'm back in schools full time, so it took a little time for me to get my routine going. I know as a principal, but I also play a lot of golf, bro. I love golf.
Hey, I appreciate it. That's the one thing, I think we connected, man. It's probably been close to probably running up on 10 years now that we connected, in this space of just advancing Black male educators and kind of, bringing this work to the forefront that we've been doing. Have partnered on a lot of things. You've done a great job supporting me in my initiatives that I've done back in 2022 when I won Principal of the Year in Kansas City. BLOC KC kind of helped celebrate that achievement and things like that. The thing that I've loved and admired about you is that how you have been able to balance the vision of what you're trying to build around Black male education and your own personal grounding in your spirituality. I mean, anytime I've been in the space with you, you've already brought it back to that spirituality and being grounded and making sure we pay homage to the people that came before us, our elders that came before us, that laid the groundwork, and to the work that we are able to do and advance the work that we continue to do. So I appreciate that about you and your leadership. That 20, 30 minutes in the morning, bro, is crucial. And just kind of before we jump into it, just quick little story. Back in March, I went through something professionally that really took me to a whole other level spiritually. And I wrote about it in a book that's going to be coming out soon.
Yeah, I can't wait for the book to come out, bro. It's gonna be dope.
But since then, I really have been every morning taking that 30 minutes and really just trying to ground myself. And like really lately now, my focus has been around not trying to find joy in external things. And how do I find joy in who God has already called me to be, man? So like you just bringing that up really kind of drives home kind of as educators, we got to find that place of peace and comfort, So let's jump into mindset, to kind of start off our framework piece of this. So BLOC KC was born out of the belief that students need to see themselves in their educators, and that Black men belong in every part of the educational ecosystem. What mindset drives your leadership of BLOC that keeps that mission alive and at the forefront?
I think that you really hit the head right there when it thinks about the real impact and how students are benefited from seeing teachers that look like them. And so shout out to Trinity Davis, doing great work in Kansas City with the organization called Teachers Like Me, right? This idea that is not new, but I think when data empirically proves something, it starts to become a little bit more widely accepted, right? It starts to become more of a trend. And now the data is proven that when students have a teacher that shares the same language, same culture, same experiences as them, it lowers the barrier of trust, right? It heightens the ability to learn, right? By lowering the barriers of difference that students and teachers have towards each other. And so that heightened achievement not only carries over through their classrooms that they're immediately in, right? So if they have a Black male educator, if they have an educator that looks like them in their classroom, they will achieve them higher, but they will continue to achieve longitudinally over time higher, right? And we know that educational achievement leads to not just, degrees and jobs, but higher earning and longer life, right? We actually have been able to create longitudinal studies that correlate educational achievement with actual lifespan. And we know that the more education you have, the longer you live and the higher quality of life that you live. And so the mindset, honestly, is always remembering what impact we are having on a daily basis with these young people. And it's not just the young Black boys that we deal with. All students need to see educators of all different backgrounds. I think as Black men, we often walk into schools and we may be one of the only, if not very few, positive Black male role models in students' lives, no matter what identity they come from. I've tutored and worked with young white students who have never had a relationship with a Black person, let alone a Black educator. And so the fact that they're, one of their relationships that they have in their lives is with someone that looks like me, or with someone that shares the type of philosophies, North Star ideas and lifestyles that I have, is eye-opening for those that may not get to experience on a regular basis. Fear is bred in distance. And when we can close the distance between people and styles, personalities, thoughts, we can kind of close some of that fear. And that's for the others, right? And they also achieve higher. And so that mindset, right, is just always keeping in mind what it is that we're doing on a daily basis, the impact that we're having on a regular basis, and how it's irreplaceable, right? And how there aren't very many of us. And so, it really matters for us to show up on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I want to send a shout out to Trinity Davis as well. If you want to know more about the Teachers Like Me work, jump back to episode 5.
Hey,
Trinity did to episode 5, and then also just yesterday, this episode will drop in October, but yesterday, from the day we recorded, I had a meeting with Trinity. We're actually bringing our partnership to Granby, which I'm super excited. I've been really trying to work and push that partnership for the last 2 years. So we finally got, an MOU that we got that we're starting to, have our people look through and comb through. Actually, I'm going out in a couple of weeks to Jackson State, and then a couple weeks after that to Grambling State to do a dual recruitment with them at those 2 universities. We got a young man that's going to be coming on board with us in January that's graduating from Alabama A&M. But the thing that I love about Trinity's program is I have 2 other Black men in my school who are in first year starting that work. this is going to be my third one, is that they try to put teachers in the school as a community. They don't put them as isolation. And we know as Black men, that's one of the things that we struggle with when we come to a district. If we are often, if there's 5 of us, we're on 5 different buildings.
Exactly.
So bringing them all into one building, letting them be able to kind of feed off each other and help support each other is something that she does. When she was talking about, like, she has 10 at Central High School, she has 10 over, I think, at Gwendolyn Phillips Elementary School. So putting them in cohorts together in the same building that they can kind of help each other to grow is something that I think is revolutionary. And that's why I wanted to kind of get you on the show, because I feel like we're doing some stuff in Kansas City that's not being done in a lot of places across the country, with 2 organizations that are powerhouses in reshaping what education looks like from the lens of Black educators. So with that, let's jump into approach. And so I'm gonna take you back to the beginning. BLOC was founded in 2016, inspired by the fellowship, born out of the Black male educator gathering to support one another.
Exactly.
How did the original story shape your approach as the organization started to grow from a small network to now an organization that has national partners?
Right. Yeah. It's been a journey. And it's been almost 6 years now since I've been the official executive director, since we took our first pot of money, since I could pay myself. Right. And so you're right. The work started in 2016. I think that's the first key part about the approach, is that you guys got to just do it. I think oftentimes we have great ideas. We know exactly what things need to happen. I think about, again, Trinity, putting Black men together in cohorts in schools was exactly what I experienced that kind of led to this idea in the first place of, like, oh, if there's groups of us, if we can create some affinity space, if we can create employee resource groups, right, for like-minded or similar identity folks, and that helps create sustainability and retainability in the education profession. And so through our experiences with Amplify, which I also was a co-founder of, right, this idea of how can we do professional development with just us, and through, like you mentioned, the conferences in Philadelphia, where we experienced whole rooms of just Black male educators, and the power that had, really is what inspired our approach here. Initially around just professional development, creating gatherings, affinity spaces, safe spaces for Black male educators. I'll never forget our very first meeting in 2016. Jeff Schaefer, one of our other co-founders, shout out to City Year, another great organization doing great work in Kansas City and beyond. But he was the director of development at that time, and we had access to the building after hours, and that's where we did our PD. We would bring guys in once a month, and we would have conversations about something that we knew educators, and specifically men educators of our identity, were struggling with in the education profession. So the very first one that we did was called the Black Tax, and now it's a more documented phenomenon, right? But this idea of when we are the only in a building, we end up doing everything. We breaking up the fights, we doing cafeteria duty, we doing hall duty, we coaching teams, we doing operations, we sweeping the floor, we carrying the big stuff. You know what I mean? So, like, that becomes a strain on the sustainability and retainability of a Black male educator. And so we had a professional development that talked about that, and had conversations about how to create boundaries, how to say no, how to be able to manage up, how to be able to coach, so that you don't always have to step into Susie's room when it gets a little bit crazy, and support with culture management, because you're her next door neighbor on your plan, right? And that was the very kind of first iteration in that first year of just kind of getting together monthly, first 2 or 3 years, getting together monthly and doing professional development, social opportunities, social hours, gatherings, to be able to network and be able to build conversation across those guys that were maybe isolated in their districts, as you mentioned earlier. And then the approach, I wouldn't say changed, but the approach has to grow, right? And so when we got our first grant, about 3 years into doing the work, right, someone noticed. Shout out to Murray Woodard, and who's now the new executive director at Combat. Really great opportunity for him, but he was previously at BLOC KC, and previously to that was at Kauffman Foundation, which was where our first grant came through. And so shout out to the Kauffman Foundation as well, who supported Amplify for several years, going up on a decade now, and has also supported BLOC in its early stages. But that's when the approach starts to shift, right? When you can really start to think about where the revenue is coming from, and now you're running a business. You're not running a nonprofit. You're running a tax-exempt business that's doing great work, right? And so that's really the approach shift and mindset shift as we start to grow BLOC from something that happens on a monthly basis to something that I do every day as a full-time job. And so that approach then continues to evolve as the business continues to evolve. And so now 6 years in, partnerships is a big thing for us. We know who we are as an organizational identity and organizational footprint. We're not a TFA. We're not an educator academy. We're not even a Teachers Like Me. We don't support all teachers or even all Black teachers. We support all male teachers and specifically Black male teachers right now. And so we know that that's a small subset of the education community. And so, we know who we are. We know how we support. We support Trinity. We support the Educator Academy. We support TFA because they have 5 Black men there. If that, they are supported through BLOC's programming and BLOC's work. We have partnerships with schools that helps create revenue. We've worked with Grandview before to be able to support, create professional development, not only for small affinity spaces of Black male educators or male educators of color, or male educators in general. We work with Kansas City Girls Prep Academy to be able to support their male educators. Shout out to them. We also work with universities to be able to help support their undergraduate male educators as kind of not male educators, but male students as more of a persistence effort. And so now the approach as a business has evolved again, right? To be able to think about, in what ways we are gaining sustainable and long-term revenue to be able to help ensure that BLOC is something that is here for generations to come.
And I love that, man. Like I said, how you went from, providing that monthly PD to like, this is something I live every single day. I mean, it really goes with the mantra of the podcast. We believe in highlighting when dreams become reality. BLOC was a dream, a vision, and now it's a living, thriving organization that's doing amazing work here in Kansas City, that's known across the country with a lot of different entities and things like that. You also talk, and I hear you kind of what I resonates with me, it comes up with me, is like, when passion meets purpose, community becomes culture. And that's kind of what you're building in that process. Every episode I've done, there's always been something that's been going on, or I've been reading or something that really kind of hits home in the episode. And right now I'm reading the book by Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect. It's been very thing, but one thing he talks about there is luck, and this concept of luck. And he talks about, basically he gives this formula that says when preparation and attitude meets opportunity and you take action, that's how you provide luck. I love that formula. So when I hear your story, your approach, it was that preparation, you had the right attitude. So then when the opportunity came from Kaufman and all those other opportunities, you took action, and now this organization to be able to, kind of be self-sustaining in a way. So I love to hear that. And I hope people take away from that piece of that you can't just sit around and wait for things to happen. It's like, what can I do today to make an impact today? And eventually those small steps consistently will go into something even greater. And that's kind of what the book Compound Effect really hits upon.
That's right.
The next piece of our framework talks about people. So BLOC is all about people, specifically Black males. You built a network over 150 Black males here in the Kansas City area just alone. Who are the people, mentors, colleagues, students even, who have shaped you and sharpened your mission along the way?
Wow. When I talk about my leadership philosophy, when I talk about the way that I operate, my modus operandi, it is people. I'm a people person. That is my superpower. I'm able to see people's auras. I'm able to engage with them and be able to communicate with them on a level that's different than others. And I think that I'm also an empath, and so I feel others as well very keenly, and it's something that I use to my advantage and work with people. As you said, education is a very people-centered business. I would say, of course, family members have to start that list, right? I was thinking work folks, but I'll come back around to them. My mother was educated for 30 years. And I often tell a story about my formative experiences walking through banks and walking through malls and grocery stores, and people being like, "Oh my God, Miss Ellis, is that you?" Like, you taught me when I was in third grade. You taught me 20 years ago, and you changed my life. And I think back then, it was like, oh my God, like, can we keep it moving? Like, it didn't really dawn on me what was happening as a youngster. But now that I'm older, it's happening to me, starting to happen to me. And I really understand, over time, I began to understand the true impact that educators make on people's lives. So shout out to my mother, of course, and my father as well. My father was a nonprofit leader, so I understood the importance of service and community. And he also enforced on me the importance of education and learning. I'm still a lifelong learner, and I wouldn't be if it wouldn't have been for my father. And part of my personal story, my father passed away in high school, but he still is a formative part of my experience. And even that is a formative part of my story, right? Of really bouncing back from trauma and depression and loss and grief, which is something that I think a lot of us have to deal with. So mom, dad, shout out to them. I have an older sister who's also in education. So education is just kind of around my family. The next person I will give a shout out to is probably Corey Scholes. Corey Scholes is a lifelong friend, and she was my principal in middle school. And so she's known me for a very long time. She's the one that got me into education in the first place. And she was also one of the originators behind Amplify as well. And so she was also the one that took us to BMAC for the first time. And so she was the one that really kind of got me, like you said, pieces of that luck, right? Pieces of those pieces of preparation versus attitude and opportunity that I was able to take advantage of. She was the orchestrator of several of those opportunities. And so we're still great friends, confidants to this day. And now that I've gotten older, she's been able to provide me with, conversations that are for fathers, right? Conversations that are for partners, conversations that are for school leaders, right? As my journey evolves, our conversations evolve as mentor mentee. Sharif and those guys up in Philadelphia, when I think about nationally, right? Like, we have a national network of folks that I would love to give shout outs to. Sharif and Chris Mden up on the East Coast, and Curtis Valentine with Real Men Teach. Really great, dope guys. The Profound Gentleman Fellows, Mario, and what's my guy's name? Works for the Dobbs Foundation in Atlanta right now. Really great guy, Jason Terrell. Thank you for all the work and partnership that we've had. Minnesota, Marcus Flynn, they have a Black Male Teach organization that does great work, getting money from the Grizzlies. There's some great work in Colorado that happens with the Black Male Initiatives. In St. Louis, there's great work that happens. California, we're always in California, working with Peter Watts and working with Dr. Misha Mosley in Oakland, and Keith Brooks with the National Fellowship of Black and Latino Male Educators. So there's a huge network of folks across the country also that we have not only intentionally partnered with and aligned ourselves with, but have also gotten bread with, to be able to advance our cause of something of the 2%, right? Which was a lot of our rallying cry. So, I think that the people are, I think I used to have a sign in my classroom. It was a Huey Newton quote that said, have the people behind me, and the people are all that I need. And I think that really does exemplify, on days that it gets hard, on days that you don't think you're not going to get a grant, on days that you don't have no money, it's the people that carry you through.
So, I mean, that was a lot. I mean, you shout out a lot of people. Shout out to mom and dad. I mean, I think a lot of times as we are growing up, we don't understand the impact that our parents, grandparents have. And a lot of times being on the ground in education, I think that's one of the things that as a Black community, we have kind of got away from, is understanding that foundational family unit. Ain't no more. I tell people all the time, I don't see a lot of big mamas like it was back in the day, who was willing to step in and be able to help out when mom and dad was falling short for whatever reason, you know, and things like that. So shout out to your mom and dad for what they laid the groundwork for you as well. Shout out to your sister. You know, that sibling piece is very strong. You know, somebody that knew you back when, you know, type of thing.
Right. And still rock with you.
And still rock with you. It helps you stay grounded, you know what I'm saying, as well.
Right,
You know.
right, yeah.
And then I mean you shouted, I mean, as far as the national networks, you know, you shouted out Sharif the OG, who I've done some work with, you know. So shout out to him. I definitely want to, you know, get out to his gathering one day, you know, one day I'm gonna be on that.
You ain't been with us before?
I've never had a chance to get out there. I've been to MCL, you know, down in Florida, but
okay, that's probably why. Yeah, that's probably why. And
so,
we did New York a few years back too.
Yeah, we didn't do the New York trip was amazing. I mean, we met some really dope people down in New York as well.
Yeah,
and some of their schools they're doing up there, you know, all male academies and things like that. So, you know, really what I take from all of that is, you know, behind every organization are people who embody the vision. That's what you need.
Right.
You know, like you said, if I got my people behind me, that's all I need. You know, shout out to Huey P, you know, frat brother.
I can't leave without giving a shout out to Dante Goodwin either. Dante Goodwin has been, you know, really the backbone behind BLOC's work too. He was our first program director. And so, you know, the work that he did with building out our fellowship, which is our flagship program, was revolutionary. And without him and the data that we've collected over the last 3-4 cohorts, you know, he's the one that's helping keep our work driving as well. So shout out to Dante Goodwin.
Definitely shout out to Dante Good. That's a good segue, you know, talking about the work that Dante does, because we're gonna jump into practices next.
Okay.
So let's get into practices. So BLOC is anchored in 3 pillars: connection, development, and engagement.
That's right.
And you break down how those practices play out from your networking events to professional development to the mentoring programs you have, like Akoma Ntoso Fellowship.
Yeah. So the 3 pillars were kind of our foundation pillars, right? What we feel like kind of everything stems off of, what our house is built on. We also have values that we've built over the years as well, and a mindset and theory of change as well. As you all know that have organizations, there's lots of documents to talk about what you do and how you do it. But the connect, develop, engage has stuck with us over these almost decade. Connection, like we've already mentioned, is really the beginning. It's the people, it's the opportunities for men that see themselves as similar, or that have similar issues, or that have similar identities, to be able to build with each other, whether that be socially, or whether that be, even more important, I think, through instructional practice or through conversations professionally. That bleeds into the development, right? Where I think oftentimes we may not think we're being developed, but when we're having conversations about work over a drink, right? Like, you're learning and you're growing. Of course, there's some follow-up that goes along with that, right? And that's where kind of the development piece comes in. How can we create structures and systems that take those conversations over whiskey into your classroom the next day, or into your school building the next day? How can we create forms of accountability? How can we create forms of quantitative and qualitative data mapping? How can we create action steps that are informed from the conversations that we have? I think that was one of the things that, you know, I really realized I was doing early, was that I was taking a lot of these conversations that were informal and turning them into formal professional development that, you know, became, wow, like I never have had that conversation in a school setting before. Or wow, like I've never read a piece of research or read a document that can help, like, define and give lexicon to the things I was feeling in that moment, right? And I think that in all affinity spaces and safe spaces, right, those conversations should be happening, but they're even more important the less represented that a group is. And so the connection, to bust through the isolation, the development to bust through the glass ceiling, right, of feeling like I'm only going to be the ISS guy for my life. I'm only going to be the culture guy. They don't see my academic skill set. They don't see my instructional pedagogical skill set, right? And how can I, you know, manage up, and how can I get a new gig? Our fellowship program actually gives guys $12,000 to be able to pursue their next licensure or degree. And so that way you are able to take that next step on the ladder, for lack of a better term, right? You're able to get that next promotion. You're actually qualified with the building licensure now to be the athletic administrator that you want to be at a big Class 6 high school, right? Some of these guys come in wanting to be coaches, and they don't realize you got to have a teaching license to be a coach. And they don't want to go through to getting a teaching license, or they don't have the money to go get a teaching license, or they haven't been matched up with the right school or right leader to get a teaching license, and to be able to persist and be retained over the course of the time necessary to be able to get the licensures and certifications. So there's just a lot of barriers that occur that BLOC starts to mitigate, not only mitigate, but then starts to create policy and systems to prevent through the development. And then the engagement piece starts to break outside of the four walls of the school, right? So how can we, now that we've started to develop you, got you your next license, now you're a leader in your school building, let's take that leadership outside the four walls of your building to truly start to impact your community. Brothers Liberating Our Communities is an intentionally named phenomenon, right? Like, we're not liberating just schools, because schools are integral parts of our communities. The old African proverb, how are the children? Because if the children are not well, right, if they don't feel the warmth of the village, then they'll burn it down, right? That's the next most popular piece of that adage. And so the engagement piece is not final, right? But it is what we see as a progression of the retention, sustainment, and advancement of some of our least represented educators and most impactful, most needed educators in our buildings. And so the engagement is almost just another beginning, right? We connect, we develop, and then we engage, so that now you can start your next journey of community leadership, of entrepreneurship, of financial freedom, of generational wealth, right? But we do believe that all of that starts in the classroom. It starts in our schools, and then we grow from there. And so the Connect, Develop, Engage was really like a progressive, sequential map, if you will, for liberation.
And I mean, and if you were listening closely, like, he literally just gave you the blueprint. We can, connect with people, develop, engage, and that engagement piece allows them to then connect with their next level of networking. And then they're going to develop, engage, and then you connect with the next level. I mean, that's the blueprint right there.
Don't forget to continue to develop through that, right? Like you said, like, you connect with the next. I love that. You connect with the next person, then you know something new. Like, I am being developed in a now. We're going into school founder, so I'm going to be a school network CEO, right? So the next connection brings to a next level of development as well, so that you can engage again, and then, like you said, just keep doing it again, connect again. Right. I love that, yeah.
And I mean, for me, I mean, that's a practice right there, not just to retain educators, but to transform education itself. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like you said, you start out in that classroom, you're connected with your kids, you're connected with your school, you're developing, then you're getting engaged. Okay, I want to get more engaged. I want to be the department chair. I get to that department chair people. I'll connect with some other department chairs. We develop each other now. Oh, I could be an assistant principal. It's just that life cycle of how we grow and continue to stay. And with that, though, which kind of leads into our next piece with impact, is once you move to that next level, we take on that mindset. And I've seen BLOC do this of how do we lift while we climb? And that kind of leads me into that impact piece. So the impact speaks for itself with BLOC. You retain 100% of your members over 5 years. You expand partnerships within the high schools. You're in college levels. You connect with organizations globally. What impact are you most proud of? And how have you seen the lives change of Black male educators that you've worked with?
Yeah, it's got to be it's through the fellowship. It's our flagship program. It's our flagship opportunity to be able to impact our guys on a really micro way. And so when we first started doing the professional development, we were getting a couple dollars here and there, but we were missing the big dollars. We were trying to figure out what it was. There was a gap between the $50,000 awards and the $500,000 awards and the $5 million awards. And what we realized through conversations with one of our co-founders, Spencer Hardwick, shout out to another close friend known in my whole life, and also one of the co-founders of BLOC. We developed this cohort model, right, where we would be able to impact guys on a more micro level. And so through the Akoma Ntoso Fellowship, named by Dante Goodwin. We created the micro level wraparound services that are, the real sustainment and retention practices through the fellowship. We retained 100% of 15 fellows that we've worked with over the 3 cohorts. And all about 87% of them have received promotions, increased responsibility, or increased salary after the fellowship. They leave our fellowship. It's like a career accelerator for early career Black male educators. We get guys in their first 7 years. They get the $12,000 that I mentioned earlier, paid directly to their institution of choice. They get to choose their program. They get to choose their leadership path, which I really think is the other revolutionary part about our program. Black men, because they're so rare and so talented in education, they often have a unique idea or unique path that they are seeking to follow in education, but that they're then told isn't possible, isn't feasible, that's not what we need right now. They're not allowed to follow their dreams in education. And education is such a broad, and needs to change so much. It's so broad, it needs to change so much that any idea right now is a good idea in trying to get our babies to read and do math better. And so I'll give you a perfect example of one of my guys. And he's not a fellow, unfortunately, but this is kind of the ideal type of impact that we want to have. So we went to college together, actually. He was a basketball player. He's from Oakland, California, 6'7", 280 pounds. Like, you probably met Mr. Lowe before. Huge man, tattooed from his neck to his toes. He's from Oakland, so he's got a lot of prior experience with communities. And he came to Kansas City to escape, and to not escape, but to better himself. Got an MBA at Avila University. And when I was at Kaufman, I needed a basketball coach. So I was like, hey, like, Mr. Lowe, like, you should come over here and coach. I think the kids will love you. Yes, kids loved him. Building great relationships with kids. And he's got an MBA. Turns out we need a math teacher. So now we get him fully certified, and he's in the classroom. And he's got kids jumping out the gym doing algebra, like, great algebra teacher. So he's now been a teacher for the last 7 or 8 years. He's now teaching science. He's now a science teacher, because when you go to his house, he's got a terrarium in his garage. He's got snapping turtles. He's got boa constrictors. He's got a dog kennel. He's got fish. He's got, and what he really loves is animals. And so what I love for him to do is to go get his PhD or go get his doctoral in veterinary sciences, and to drive around the city as Dr. Lou, the animal guy, the exotic animal guy. And he goes to schools, and he's able to contract with schools. He's able to contract with the zoo. He's the Black male zoologist. Imagine how much life and vitality he could bring to a community by showing children how to care for and how to love animals. I've already seen in kids that can't even sit down, kids that wouldn't do no work. You give them one of those like a bearded dragon, like a little pet for them in class. They'll sit for a whole class period and get their work done. Like, that's something that maybe they just needed to be able to access, some calm. And so the fellowship is designed to be able to not only give guys the support with an instructional coach and with a mentor and with the dollars to be able to get the degree, but also with the vision to be able to see what is possible for them in education and how can they find their true purpose in education. We've helped guys get to be athletic directors. We've helped guys get to be counselors. We've helped guys get to be instructional leaders. You have one of our former fellows in your building. I think that the paths are so wide, and the fellowship is designed to be able to uniquely create supports for each of the guys that come into the fellowship. And again, that impact, I think, is what I'm most proud of, is being able to know that we are helping guys that otherwise may have left education because they can't afford it, or because they are frustrated with a lot of the aforementioned barriers that are presented to them. But through the fellowship, not only are they allowed to be sustained and retained, but to advance and to continue impacting even larger swaths of students, and make larger impact. And so I think that when the teacher leader conundrum, right, is we love impacting our kids directly. And we know that as we move up or move out of the classroom, we impact kids less directly, but we impact more exponentially. And I think that that's what Akoma Ntoso allows me to feel, is that I know that each one of my fellows is responsible for at least 1,000 students. And, as we keep them from quitting every year, that number just exponentially grows.
And for me, I think it's bigger than numbers. Like, you're creating legacy,
Yes.
you're creating a lot of legacy. And I want to talk real quickly about one of the fellows that just recently completed the program, Javen Betts. I first ran into Javen Betts when he was, I believe, a sophomore in high school at Sumner Academy over in KCK. He graduated with my daughter. And I went to a career fair, and basically it was a career fair where the students were presenting careers that they wanted to go into or interested in. They had the trifolds up around the gym and things like that. And, he caught my eye because, you rarely go anywhere and see somebody say they want to be an educator.
Mm-hmm.
So, that automatically resonated. And me and Javen connected that day, and we kind of have kept in touch. And, I'm kind of mentoring from the side as he's kind of went through, through KU and did his program there. In my previous podcast, we had him on as a future Black male educator and like that. Yeah. And now, he can't just, recently went through the fellowship with you and doing amazing things out in Shawnee Mission. Is definitely on a trajectory, one day to be somebody's superintendent, to do amazing work. So I firsthand have seen the power of how the fellowship has not only taken somebody that was passionate about the work, has accelerated their ability to lead the work through Javen and the awesome work he continues to do. So now let's look ahead. BLOC is already on track to expand in 2026, bringing even more Black educators into the classroom. But what's next for BLOC KC? What do you see as the next frontier in the fight for representation and equity in the work that you do?
Yeah. So I haven't really talked about this much publicly, but I figured this might be the right time to do it. I mentioned earlier that I'm on the school founders mission. And so we've always known that really where BLOC's true impact lies is in running our own school and understanding that we can impact students and teachers in our own self-sustaining ecosystem, and not have to worry about running around to 6 different leaders around the city or driving around to different campuses or working with guys through struggles that wouldn't exist in the building that we ran, right? And so we've been given that opportunity. Shout out to Murray Woodard and Kokethia Hill over at BLOC KC. And BLOC KC is on a school expansion program right now. And BLOC will be the second school that they will be opening. We'll be opening an all-boy, all-male institution elementary school here in the Kansas City area. Not quite sure about all the details right now. I'm currently in the first year of a 2-year fellowship that requires me to be in a residency principalship in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm over at Believe Academy. Shout out to Tamara Pendleton and John Manning and the team in St. Louis, having an incredible year already. And shout out to my coach over at BLOC KC, Charles Stanley. But we're opening our own school, and we're going to be training our own educators. All of our fellows will be at the same school, and all of BLOC's programs will run through the institution. I mentioned earlier self-sustaining revenue. Students are in a school is always a place to have sustainable and long-term revenue. And once we have the highest performing 3rd graders in the state of Missouri and the highest performing 8th graders in the country, everybody's is going to want to replicate and stamp our model. And so I can't wait to revolutionize what education looks like in our country. I think I've known personally Cornell's mission has always been to change what schools look like in our world. I've been put here to do that. And BLOC was just kind of the first step in working with who was in our schools, who was looking at our students, and how that work was happening. And now we're moving on to the next phase of this, which is what it looks like to be able to run our own institution with all of our great partners, with all of the community conversations that we've had, with the knowledge and the love that we have for the Kansas City community. We're not just bringing in another school. Respectfully, we'll be bringing in the future of schools, and I'm really excited about it.
And that's right there, man, is true vision casting. When, when you look back 2016, a decade ago, you dreamed big, but you built it brick by brick. And now you're on the verge of seeing the next iteration of your vision, the vision of the entire, founding team who, probably could believed it and wanted it, but now it's like right there on the cusp of happening. So, to my listeners out there, go back and replay this episode, take the notes, because Cornell shows you how do you go from a vision to reality. How do you make your dream your reality, just like the podcast said. So we made it to the end, so we're gonna wrap up with some gems, and I'm gonna kind of give you some stems, and you can kind of go whatever direction you want with this. But there's a lot of different things that we've talked about in this episode, a lot of things I've seen you do over the years. So if you had to be able to give one piece of advice, what would that be, say, to one of these three things? The young Black man out there considering becoming an educator. And I know that's a passion about yours, and talking about how education is truly a revolutionary thing. So that's one piece. To a school leader who wants to diversify their staff, how do they go about taking the first steps to do that? Or to the community out there who wants to support your work as you continue to move forward in laying the foundation of the future of education, not just in Kansas City, but across the country for Black males, but also Black children. So any one of those, you go whatever direction you want, or whatever else is on your heart. We're gonna give you the full screen to go ahead and drop the people the gems to kind of wrap up our day, our episode.
Yeah, man. I that's always tough. Put me with the gems, right? I think that gems can be, they come naturally, the best ones. But I think those questions were really poignant. When I think about young educators, I think go back to the people. I think your mapping, I think there are great pieces there for people to unpack, right? For me, again, the people are the purpose. If you are not rooted in your people, as a leader, if you're not taking care of your people, as a teacher, if you're not taking care of your students and your families, then you're missing the point. And so, I think one not famous, but there's a quote, this is not about me. And I know I don't want to promote like martyrdom or anti-rest mindsets here, but you truly do come last. You are a servant to the work. To leaders that are looking to diversify their staff or diversify their building, I would ask them to diversify themselves first. Go analyze your own circle, analyze your own practices, and think about ways that you can start to change before you start seeking to change things outside of you. You probably, I don't want to make any assumptions, but you probably don't run around with that many people of color. You probably don't hang out in many spaces of people of color, and you probably aren't engaging very authentically with culture of people of color. And so before you start looking to change your school and change the people around you, start changing yourself. And finally, I would say for people that are looking to support BLOC's work, we have to start dreaming bigger. So I think you have alluded to several times to the vision. And yeah, I think when I first started teaching in 2014, I think it was my first full-time gig. I couldn't even tell you what a nonprofit was. And I definitely couldn't tell you how I paid myself to do it, right? But I knew that work needed to be done. And so, we always talk about when you see a problem, lean into it. I would say lean into it with imagination, because the future of schools and the future of what's going to save us doesn't exist yet. And make no mistake about it, we need to be saved. Whether it's us saving ourselves, whether it's somebody else helping us, that's an argument for another day. But make no mistake about it, in the current world that we are living in, today is September 13th, 2025. It's been a rough week. We need saving. And so dream bigger and have a bold vision for what you want the future to look like, and make no mistake about getting there, one step at a time. And finally, I would say ground yourself back. Like you said, replay this episode. The most important thing we talked about this episode was in the first 5 minutes. I think everything that this vision that was built brick by brick, it starts literally, bro. I've been doing that every morning for the last 5 years. It's washing my feet, saying the same prayer, reading my Bible in the same way, and talking to God in a way that has allowed me to be guided. And so that is the true foundation of the work that is the vision work. If you're not grounded in yourself and grounded in something bigger than you, then none of your steps will work.
Man, that was a lot. There was some gems for you. So it kind of came naturally. I want to reach back and pull one of your pillars out as we get ready to close. Because there's something that you said to leaders, and I want to echo to leaders that development piece of your pillars. Because as a leader, as somebody who does this work every single day at the flagship institution in Grandview School District, at Grandview High School, something that I fully believe as a leader, as part of my belief system, is never ask your staff to do something you're not willing to do. So you can't develop your staff if you're not willing to develop yourself. So develop yourself before you do anything and step out there and do any of that work. So I definitely wanted to reach back and grab that piece of that. The other thing before I wrap up is, man, Cornell, I want to thank you first and foremost for coming on and just giving us the history, the vision of what BLOC is. Like I said, you've been doing this for like a decade now. And I believe in giving people their flowers. And I would tell you from my seat where I've sat at and been in Kansas City for most of the BLOC journey, like you have truly revolutionized what education looks like for Black males and the work that we do on a daily basis, and supported us in so many ways. Your leadership, your vision, your commitment to ensuring that Black educators aren't just recruited, we're advanced, retained, and celebrated is work that I've never seen done in any other place I've been. So I appreciate you and your team for all that you've done for me and for all the Black males that I've had a chance to be able to touch and work with. And, BLOC is definitely a staple in the city. So truly appreciate the work that you're doing. To our listeners, remember this: representation is not optional. Retention is not accidental. And revolution in education begins with a community. So who is your community that you're surrounding yourself with? And before we wrap up, I always got to shout out my producer, the super producer, Whitney Smith, in the background, always making the show flow. The thing I love about Whitney, I have seen over the last month of school, Whitney is a senior. She's graduating from my high school this year. She has been instrumental in teaching and bringing along the next generation of our Bulldog TV members. I've seen her in the hallways, showing them how to shoot camera angles, writing scripts and things like that. She is truly going to be something special. I already told her once she goes off to college, she's still going to be my producer behind the scenes. But shout out to Whitney, amazing young woman who's going to do phenomenal things no matter where she goes. So with that, people,
when I tried to change times last night and you said you was going to text your producer, and then I found out your producer was a student, I was like, this is dope. Thank you so much. I want to give that double shout out as well, because having a student run things like this is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about giving kids opportunities to change the world. So shout out to you, Dr. Smith. You're doing some great work.
Appreciate that, bro. People, please go follow us on X, Dr. V Smith, and the BlackPrint PC. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and a leader out there that he needs to hear this interview, please send it to them. Until next time, this is the BlackPrint, where dreams become reality and culture is everything. Thank you for joining us on the BlackPrint podcast, where dreams become reality and culture is everything. Subscribe, rate, and share with someone leading with purpose. Stay connected to the BlackPrint. We're building more than a brand, we're building legacy. Follow us on X at BlackPrint PC and Dr. V Smith. This show is powered by Dreams Made Real, where dreams become culture. When I had the red and black lumberjack with the hat to match.